everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we are talking about Christianity versus Druidism. What is the true religion? Right, this is something that I've kind of been building up to and been touching on in a lot of the videos recently about the Irish origins of civilization that I've dubbed with the moniker How the Redheads Built the Pyramids. And I just want to say a few things about the series and the information and just the general topic, because this is something that's been on my mind in a big way for a couple months now. You know, from, the birth of Isla and, over this summer, listened to a lot of Jesse Lee Peterson, who of course is a Christian reverend, not exactly on the same vibe as a lot of Christian leaders, but, I found his message to be very interesting way of conveying Christianity, right, of not focusing on specifically the Bible and the passages there, as the prime thing, but, as God acting through your heart, right, of the internal narrative and the narrative of forgiveness, right, specifically forgiving one's parents, and thereby taking on sovereignty and the true self of the individual, right? It is through forgiveness that we reclaim our own true nature and become those sovereign, children of God, to use the epithet, right? And, but there's a few things that Jesse Lee Peterson says, and of course a lot of Christians say, that I just simply can't vibe with. I try, I'm becoming more politically conservative, and, I accept the necessary aspect of hierarchies, right, and of the means to enforce the correct way of doing things via force and coercion. So, I am more of a statist than I was. I'm not an anarchist anymore. I'm still a libertarian. I still believe in minimizing the use of force and coercion and using incentives as much as possible. I think that is kind of, truism, right? We should give people the choice when we can, but we also can't be so naive to think that people will always make the correct and moral choice, right? It is a fallacy of the anarchists and the libertarians to believe that everyone is ethical, everyone has a conscience, everyone wants freedom, because they don't. I'm sorry, I wish they did, but they don't. There are some hardcore statists in this world, and people who are evil, people who have no conscience, people who will act within the rules only insofar as to not get caught, right? Those people do exist, absolutely. And, it returns us to the necessity of a moral framework, of some sort of, objective rule structure, right? It is not all just this moral relativity. You can't just default to that like it's some sort of profound position. It's not. It's an abnegation of one's own judgment and authority to say, well, it's all just different opinions, right? Genital mutilation in Islamic cultures, well, that's just their prerogative, right? And of course we've got our own set of moral conundrums in our own civilization, and especially, like with Christians also, there's such a focus on God and Jesus, the physical story character, right? I believe that there was a real person, who that story was based upon, that we know today. But I also can't deny that there's the aspect of the solar hero, right? That Jesus was playing into an archetype that already existed, right? It was already in the world when he came into it, and he was resonating with that, and he used those themes and conveyed a message that was so powerful that it transformed the entire world, and still we're living in that transformed world, right? And he was at war with the Sanhedrin, with the judges, with, basically the Jewish kind of, power structure, right, that existed in that time. And he was saying, you guys are operating on false assumptions. You have a fake religion. You're not actually respecting the true aspect of life. And you are profaning the Word of God. You are profaning the house of God. You are, you are heathens in the temple, right? You are desecrating this religion and this space, and you are not doing service to these people who are the sheep in your shepherd's flock, right? And, of course, that's where we get, a lot of the goat and sheep imagery from the Bible is, the ancient shepherd kings. It was a caste of people who, back in the day, husbandry and animals, was a source of wealth. It was a source of power. And it's these old power structures, right, of these priests and, these royal lineages, right, they still echo in our world today. And the, descendants of those families still exist, and they have their own whole mythology of who they think themselves to be. And right, a lot of this is the incarnation in modern times of the secret societies, right? There's a hidden knowledge, and then there's the profane knowledge, right? And especially with the scriptures, there's the literal interpretation of them, and then there's the symbolic interpretations of them, right? There's 3 additional layers of interpretation of the sacred text, beyond just the literal interpretation. And the scriptures were typically taught literal first as a mnemonic technique, a memory technique. It's easier for us to remember the story when we think of it as an actual person, right? Just like in stories today, fictional or otherwise, you can convey a story, right? And that the characters represent aspects of the self, right? We are individuals, but we're also all resonating with different archetypes, right? And this is known as the Ennead, right? The 9 different archetypes of the human personality. It is through knowledge of the self that the actual true symbolic messages of the Bible come through, and of all the religious, instructions. I don't think that Christianity is equivalent with all the religions of the world. But in the question of, Christianity versus Druidism, and specifically the reverence toward the plants and the animals and life and the sun and the moon, this is kind of where I really think it comes down to is, Christians, they believe in venerating God and venerating Jesus, but virtually nothing else, right? Or at least this is the way that a lot of them speak, is, we don't worship the sun, we don't worship the moon, we don't worship the plants, we don't worship, life, it's only God. God is the only thing we worship, right? And only this one conception of God, right, under the name Jehovah, Yahweh, mentioned in the Bible, right? And Druidism, right, venerates God, the supreme highest God, but also sees the sun and the moon and the earth and the plants and the animals all as manifestations of that universal spirit. And family, it's just, it's people and knowing ourselves and, respecting our ancestors, right? That is part of the old religion. And, there's a part where Jesus says, like, if you hate you are not a Christian if you don't hate your parents and your family and whatnot, right? Because it's all supposed to be reserved for God, right? All the love and respect and veneration is for God, and nothing else is for anything else, right? And Michael Tessarian, in his book, he refers to that as Atonism, A-T-O-N, Aton, or A-T-E-N, right? Was the Egyptian conception of God that was the supreme God, but there was no veneration of any other subdomains of God, right? Whereas in the previous religion, Amenism, right? Amen, the sacred name, the hidden name of God, there was respect for the supreme God, but also the subdomains, right? The sun is a manifestation of God. The moon is a manifestation of God. The earth is a manifestation of God. The life growing from this planet is a manifestation of God. And it is a sexual union, right? It is the energy of the sun coming down and merging with the energy of the earth, right? And that is, everything that we are, everything that we eat, all this energy in the planet is a result of that sexual union, right, between the sun and the earth, mediated by the moon. And I don't really see a point in separating the creation of God from God himself, right? I use the phrase, right, if you want to know an artist better, it makes sense to start with studying their work, right? In the sense of, how do we know the creator? Well, study the creator's work. Study the body, study the plants, study the cosmos and the motion of the heavens, right? This is where, you'll find, the structure of God's creation, right? And it doesn't make sense to me to say, oh, all that's just a bunch of heathen nonsense, to study the body, study the stars, study the plants and animals, right? But only study God and the Bible. There's no other books you need to read, there's just the Bible, right? I don't resonate with that at all, not even close. I don't find it to be compelling. I don't, but when I read about, the Druids, and I read about the respect for life and the true Christianity, which it was, it resonates in my bones. I can feel the truth of it, right? And I've spoken about this before, the psychic, the ping of truth and the thud of a lie. But when I hear Christians talk about how cannabis is of the devil, I don't get the ping of truth. I get the thud of a lie, right? Because who made all the plants? It says it in Genesis. God created all the plants, right? He created the earth. He created, you know, the heavens. He created the plants and the animals, right? Does it really make sense to say that God created all of the plants except for one, cannabis, right? And that one was made by the devil? Like, that's insane, right? God created the cannabis plant. God created all the plants, right? And it's respect for life that is a manifestation of worship of God, right? It is not separate or different. So why then is God venerated, but none of his creations are respected as a part of God himself, right? When there's so much power in those creations as well, right? We are given these plants, we are, you know, we are given to receive them with thanksgiving in order to benefit us, to feed and nutrify our bodies, as well as to heal potential diseases, right? And, you know, just defend against the forces of darkness, right? Which manifest as disease. Disease physically as well as disease mentally, right? People who are on the dark side, who are into just reveling in that hatred and that antagonism and sacrificing life, that parasitic satanic mentality, right? It is absolutely a disease of the mind, a disease of the spirit, as well as usually a disease of the body. Similarly, why are we not to know about the physical structure of the body as well as the energetic structure of the body, right? The chakra system is a physical energy system. It's a way of describing the nervous system and the various energetic circuits within the body, right? Of which there are several. Pertaining to, you know, digestion, pertaining to physical force for activity, pertaining to, you know, feelings of the heart and, you know, basically that intuition, right? All the way to, you know, speech and, you know, our mind, our brain, as well as, you know, the third eye, right? But in Christian circles, the third eye is something deeply satanic, and anyone who learns about the structure of the energy body is truly a devil worshiper. Like, that is insane. That is completely insane presupposition, and it's born out of fear, right? These Christians proclaim to have the love of God, but really they just have a fear of their own self, right? And this book comforts them in their world of ignorance. And again, I'm not dissing on the Bible. The Bible contains massive amounts of wisdom. But anybody who tells you that the Bible is the only book you ever need to read is lying to you. They're just straight up lying to you. Because there's more to this world than just this one book. And to say that this book is the unadulterated Word of God that didn't undergo any translations or revisions or rescissions by the Council of Nicaea and old Constantine, Emperor of Rome, right? Even after the Council of Nicaea, you know, and Constantine's supposed conversion, right? In this sign ye shall conquer, right? There was still printing Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun, on the coins, right? So solar worship was the old religion, right? And it wasn't worship of the physical sun, it was worship of the sun as the image of God. And again, Christians will say that's heathenry, that's devil worship. But what could be a more perfect symbolic representation of God, of the creator of the universe, than the sun, this just ball of energy, right, that just gives and gives and gives, and it lights up the whole world, and it banishes the disease and the darkness, right? It is the ultimate disinfectant, right? The sun gives us the plants, which, you know, feeds the animals and feeds us, right? And, you know, for those who eat animals, you know, it's all solar energy that's being repackaged and rarefied in different forms, right? And even, you know, the stone and the water, and it's all a manifestation of this energy of the cosmos, of which the sun is a fountain, right? And this planet is growing, this planet is alive, the sun is alive, it all has consciousness, and it's all part of the universal field known as the ether, which is the substrate of God. It is the mechanism and the medium by which God's will is made manifest in the universe. And again, to me, the will of God is the single, total, coherent flow of all matter and energy in the universe. And all of it is connected instantaneously. So one person's experience is instantaneously connected and entangled with all other points of space and time, right? You are connected to the mind of God. You are in God's heart and soul and mind, right? This is a scientific understanding for me of theology, of religion, of God himself. And again, you know, it's absurd to suggest that, you know, the supreme being would have a sex or a gender, right? The true absolute soul is androgynous. It is male and female combined, right? And in a lot of the ancient representations of, you know, the sun god, again, it was called Baal, right? It's just a ball of energy in the sky, Bel or Baal. And we now know that as a name for the devil, right, of Satan, Baal, right? But that is a, you know, as far as I can tell, a fiction of Rome, right? There was the Irish Christian church of Ammonism, right, to the ancient Christianity which preceded Jesus Christ, of which he was resonating with these archetypes. And that religion came out of the Hyperborean Atlantean civilization, of which Ireland and the British Isles are remnants. But keep in mind that this was a global civilization, right? It's not like it was all just in Ireland. The monoliths all over the world are a testament that this was a global civilization. So, you know, it's really not an ego thing for me when I say the redheads built the pyramids. It's not like I'm trying to claim these megaliths for myself, for my redheaded brethren, right? It's really just kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of poking at the standard understanding of history, you know, of, you know, oh, we're all out of Africa, a bunch of naked apes, and, you know, we built this perfect civilization without any intermediate steps and just raised these monoliths that can never be duplicated. I mean, it's completely absurd to suggest, you know, what they suggest in every, you know, university history class. It is the result of a fiction enforced over centuries and even millennia. Specifically, you know, again, the victor writes the history, right? And the victor wasn't always just the state or the military. It was a priest class, right? It was these monks and it was these, you know, religious clergymen who misscribed history, right? And they did it deliberately to hide the truth from people and to give them a false story and a false archetype to resonate with. And that false archetype would, by nature, support the imposition and the development of the imperial state, right? Of which, you know, the Roman Empire never fell. It just devolved its temporal authority to regional governors, right, of the different kings and queens and, you know, royal families. But meanwhile, the empire survived, right, and the emperor became the pope, right? And back in, you know, the Holy Roman Empire, it was literally the leader of the state and the leader of the church. And this was originally modeled off of the Irish Pope King, right, the leader of the Druidic order, the most ascetic, spiritually advanced person in the world, essentially, the High Druid. I believe in God. I believe that there was a Jesus Christ. But I can't cast aside all the historical evidence in the world. I can't cast aside the monumental linguistic evidence that, you know, Ireland and the British Isles were remnants of Hyperborea, right? And there's a reason that the Church of Rome and its surrogate in London fought so hard to destroy Ireland and to destroy not just her people, but her culture and her memory and her language and the religion of not just worshiping God, atonism, but Ammonism, worshiping God and all that God has created, right? All of this is God, right? Not just this one character known as Jehovah in the book, right? And if you respect any of God's creations, you're a heathen. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? And they get people afraid of using the plants. They get people afraid of knowing their energy body, of doing yoga, right? Yoga is satanic. It's so dumb, right? And again, you Christians sound so ridiculous when you can't accept that there's spiritual practice outside of just praying over your cheeseburger, right? At a certain point, you got to realize the existence of energy, of orgone, etheric energy, right? And when you eat your food, it's not just chemical, biological, material energy, right? But there is life force in it. There is the light of God. And, you know, listening to raw foodists like Dan McDonald, right? He talks about the light of God in the food. And, you know, I'm not a raw foodist, but I do absolutely, you know, I start every day with a smoothie with greens and fruit and, you know, basically all plant-based. And, you know, it's that lightness, right, that brings energy into the body, not just the chemical bonds that are breaking down by acid in the stomach. So you can't just say, I love and believe in Jesus and I love God, and put garbage into your body, right? You go to church on Sunday, but the rest of the week, you know, you're basically engaging in activities that aren't holy, that aren't divine, that don't respect that, you know. And I don't know, I'm trying to establish a religious practice, a spiritual practice that, you know, I can pass on to Isla, our daughter. And, you know, I wish that we could go to a church, and maybe we'll, you know, start looking at the ones around here to see if any of them we can vibe with, but I don't want to just go into a conventional church where people are just going to tell me that the cannabis plant is evil and, you know, that the third eye is a sign of devil worshippers and, you know, all this other nonsense. I'm trying to build a bridge here, right? It's not Druidism versus Christianity. Druidism is Christianity, the old omonistic Irish religion that, you know, was reflected not just in the Bible and the stories therein, but also in the Great Pyramids as monuments to the great Son of God, right? That great icon of this creator of the universe, which is our star, the sun, and the earth, and the moon, right? It's this beautiful, perfect system that we are a part of. And, you know, we shouldn't just cut it all up, right, for the sake of, you know, what this priest tells us. But we should use our own intuition and realize that it's all one flowing field of energy and, you know, we're a part of it. And the more that we connect ourselves to that, that is the Kundalini force. Again, the Christians will say devil worship. It's just the energy of the body. Who do you think is emanating that energy but God, right? And so, yeah, that's basically, I guess, the gist of it. I just, you know, these videos are getting a lot of different reactions. Some people are, you know, arguing against it. Others, you guys think it's pretty cool. But here's the thing, guys. Any of the information that I'm bringing out, I want to start that conversation. I want to hear your opinion, if whether you agree or disagree. You don't have to get all bent out of shape and, you know, call me names and whatever. I'm just going to do the same thing back to you. But if you come at me with an attitude of, hey, Mango, I think, you know, this information is interesting, but you might not have seen this over here, and, you know, I'm open to being changed, you know, and my mind being changed. I've made videos in the past where I've said things that turned out to be wrong, right? In one of the QAnon videos, I said that Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, was in Vegas during the shooting in October of 2017. You know, that I no longer believe that to be the case, because a viewer came to me and said, Mango, that's not true. Look a little closer, you can see the guy's got a leg tattoo. It's not bin Salman. And sure enough, I was convinced. I left the video up because there's still a lot of good stuff in there. But, you know, I want you guys to kind of converse with me. I got banned from Facebook. It's probably only a matter of time before I get banned from Twitter. But, you know, I do love YouTube and the conversations we have and this, you know, path of truth that we're all walking, right? And, you know, I'm just trying to bring out this information as a conversation starter. And, you know, I have full respect for the Christians. I have full respect for life and nature and the plants. And I want some sort of symbiosis to be established. I want the Christians to understand the symbolic aspect of their own religion without sacrificing any of their faith in the physical person of Jesus, right? And him as the Son of God. And as for Druidism, people have, commenters already brought up that the existing Druids of the modern era are not exactly morally virtuous or, you know, leaders in their own right, that they're degenerate as well, and, you know, that the Druids and the people that call themselves Druids today, high-level Druids in England, right, you know, are dark types, right, you know, pedophiles and stuff, and I'm, of course, at war with that, and I think it's just important to recognize that what exists today is not the same as what existed in ancient times, that the Druidic order was basically destroyed, you know, and that it was incorporated into Freemasonry, which, you know, after the early 1700s moved forward, you know, from England, not from, you know, Scotland and Ireland, and, you know, the knowledge was profaned. And so there are people today who call themselves Freemasons, call themselves Druids, and, you know, they're engaging in the same satanic behavior as the Pope and the priests and the clergymen and the Saudi royal family and, you know, the English royal family and all the rest of them. So we're going to call out evil wherever we find it. This is not about just implementing a new church structure and like that's it. It's about understanding the true religion of life and respect for life. And no one who follows that religion could ever harm a child, could ever harm any living being unless it was out of necessity for survival or out of pure self-defense, right? So I don't really want to hear anything about how the Druids are evil because, you know, the existing church structure is evil, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, right? We got to learn how to sort the wheat from the chaff and understand the principles of things without just looking at the surface of the people who use that word, right? There's actually, what's interesting is the area that we live in is, there's a Druid monument, right, on one of our main roads here. and it was built by a lodge of Druids, the first actual lodge on the west coast of North America for the Druids. I've been meaning to go and partake of one of their meetings and see who these people are, right? Maybe they are Darksiders, maybe they're actual Druids, and they're harvesting the life force that emanates from the Son of God, right? And we'll find out. And also, it's interesting because when Ireland was destroyed in the famine, which was not a famine, it was a genocide, right? To pretend like all the Irish had to eat were potatoes, you gotta be so dumb. I mean, it boggles the mind, right? There were grains, there were so many different kinds of food that were raised in Ireland, right? Where were all the grains? Why were they starving if they could grow their own food? The Irish had plenty of grains to grow on the island, but during the actual blight of the potatoes, the English were actually offloading all of the food from the island of Ireland and moving it into Britain and other places, right? So basically it was not just a famine, it was a genocide by the English crown on the Irish people. And the population of Ireland has never recovered from that time. There were, I believe, 8 or 9 million people back then, right? And those people left Ireland and they came to the New World, right, of America. And, that's that's how I'm here. That's how little Isla here is how we came to live out here on the west coast of North America. Is the chain that began back then, right? And, it's all the more appropriate making this video today because the new season of Outlander is Jamie, the main Scottish character, and Claire coming to America, right, from Scotland. And, a perfect, beautiful historical depiction of, all the different elements that were in play and, how this country came to be populated by us redheads. And, I see so many redheaded babies walking around, right? We're nowhere near from going extinct, right? We've been selected to stay on this planet, despite the warnings of the typical academic elite, right? Saying that all the redheads are going to go extinct. Not true at all. So yeah, that's my video today. Again, I have full respect for Christians and Christianity. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but I also believe that the sun in the sky is a representative of God, the Creator, and that the earth and the moon are also manifestations of that, and that the plants and the animals are here, and they have their own divine force, and, basically they deserve to be respected. Right, and I don't think that that's at all a heathen perspective or a satanic perspective or anything like that. It's reverence for life, right? Temet noske, know thyself, right? Because in you is the image of God, and if you know thyself, you will know God, right? We are the children of God, and and the children of paradise, and we're entering a stage when we are not just going to be, adolescents in our spiritual development, but we'll come into our own, and we won't just be children of paradise, but we will be the parents of paradise, and we will know how to create it ourselves and truly manifest ourselves in the image of God. And that is the goal that I'm seeking to achieve here on this planet, and to imbue that respect for life in my family in little Isla as the generation goes on. So yeah, that's my video today. Hope you all are having a great day and a great week. I will be continuing with the series How the Redheads Built the Pyramids. Again, not an ego thing, just playing with the typical academic suspects. And I love your guys' feedback, whether it's positive or negative. But remember, you don't have to attack me. I'm just the messenger. So, let's talk about the truth, and, we'll get to where we're going. So that's my video. Hope you guys are having a great day. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.
Ah.